Holden Made.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Holden Made Podcast. I'm Jeremy Holden, your host for the Holden Made Podcast. This is a podcast about creativity, about creative processes, and anything else that piques my interest. I look forward to interviewing people about their careers, about their creativity, and about their lives in general. On the podcast today, we welcome Kyle McCarthy, a mixed media artist, filmmaker, and storyteller. He's been making short stories, short films, and music videos for years, and he's kind enough to share with us his insights about his career, his inspirations. Let's dive in and hear what he has to tell. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Holden Made Podcast, and I want to introduce Kyle McCarthy. Please introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on. My name is Kyle McCarthy. I'm a mixed media filmmaker and storyteller. I tell stories on the internet, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. But I've been making films and short films and music videos for the last decade plus, and just really started finding an audience for my work when I started leaning into my mixed media style that I'm kind of known for today. Back around the pandemic when I couldn't go out and make short films with friends, so I started teaching myself how to animate, and then found myself here.
Oh, that's very good. I follow you on Instagram. That's how I discovered your work, and I guess it's been a while now that I've been looking into your work, and I just decided to reach out to you because it speaks to me. It speaks to a lot of people,
Appreciate
and
that.
I kind of want to start off with this mixed media style. How did you develop your mixed media style with storytelling and filmmaking? Because a lot of it seems to be either collage or digital collage, and I'm not familiar. Are you digitally scanning something, cutting it out in say a program like Photoshop, or are you hand experimenting, or is it a mix of both worlds? Feel free to expand on that.
Yeah, so I make all my animations digitally, but I try to create what I call a digital handmade style. And so, um, a lot of the collage pieces that I'll use are like cut out of old magazines and like scanned and kind of have a little database I've created as a result of that. Um, Funny enough, my father-in-law is a mixed media artist and creative as well. And back in 2019, him and my mother-in-law had moved down to Puerto Rico, and he left behind like a whole stack of old like Life magazines and like all these just old magazines that when the pandemic came, I just found myself like going through them and trying to make art with them. And I thought instead of just making one collage piece based off of like the assets I had, I was like, oh, what if I scan these and make them all digitally? And around like 2021 is when I started putting stuff out on TikTok. And at first, I was like trying to both I was making music at the time and I would try to promote my music and also like my collage pieces. And what I found is that people didn't really care too much for the music, but people really seemed to be interested in the collage pieces, and people would reach out to me, to hire me to make collage animations for them and stuff like that. And so I decided to start a whole um, page just for my collage animations. That's when I started Kyle Make Short Films. And it's funny, it's just the second page ended up becoming the main thing. And just kept leaning into I found that when I leaned into telling stories using mixed media and collage animations, when I combine those two together, is where like I found that real sweet spot of like making the work I'm most proud of, and that connects with people. So yeah, that's I keep on trying to every day lean more and more into that style.
Absolutely. I completely understand that and I appreciate you sharing it. With that being said, how did you get involved with filmmaking or with creative careers in general? Because you're now doing a mix of animation, filmmaking, storytelling, and you're using it across multiple platforms. How did we get started in this journey?
Yeah. I've always loved filmmaking as more of like a passion, just, you know, stemming back from being like a 12-year-old kid using my dad's camera to make skate videos with my friends and stuff like that. And then in college would make some short films and stuff like that. But I was always scared to pursue it fully, to pursue my passions as my career. And then I was in grad school to become a social studies teacher, and Hurricane Sandy had happened, and where I lived at the time in Long Beach, New York, um, our town was just kind of destroyed by the storm, and I had my camera with me the whole time and documented the whole experience. And I had this kind of epiphany moment where it's like, life is too short not to pursue what you love. Especially like standing in my home and there being 5 feet of water through it the night before and everything being destroyed and wrecked, and kind of feeling the safety and having my camera to document everything. I was like, I want to make a film about this, and I want to pursue filmmaking. And so I kind of took a turn away from education and towards filmmaking. And a lot of it for many years was like a combination of work and day jobs, and then also like freelancing and learning by like trial by fire, everything from working on, weddings to local ads to like just kind of anything, working just as a videographer, doing any kind of like projects and wearing as many hats as possible. And then that time I started making short films and I eventually made a short documentary about Hurricane Sandy. And yeah, just through time, just kind of kept on practicing my craft and with the goal of eventually just doing that as my career.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I am sorry to hear about any traumatic incident that may have happened with Hurricane Sandy. And I'm actually wondering, since you ended up making a documentary about that, did you end up finding the fact that you had to learn how to do everything again? Because you started out young, you started out making skate films, films in
Mhm.
college, short films. Did you feel that once you had that comfort with the camera in your hand and you had to learn everything? Whatever it might have been, being a videographer or giving direction in some other capacity. Before you made that documentary, did you feel that it helped control the situation a little bit? Because I can imagine that entire situation that spawned all of this
Yeah.
was wild. I mean, I feel out of control just thinking of 5 feet of water rushing through my home. And was this almost therapeutic for you, or
Mhm.
was this? Oh, okay. So that's interesting. Feel free, expand on that.
Yeah, it was like this, it created this kind of buffer between my experience and like, the experience was so overwhelming that I couldn't make sense of it in the moment. And so I kind of knew that like this is crazy footage that I'm capturing, and be able to detach from the fact that this is actually like, my destroyed house that I'm documenting, or this is my destroyed neighborhood, and be able to. It took me a long time to finish that documentary. I ended up finishing it 7 years later, and I would work on it and I would just get like didn't know the right way to tell the story, and I was telling it in all these boring ways. And I'm like, it wasn't until eventually something flipped where I'm like, this needs to be personal, it needs to be from my perspective, and to go so micro to my experience that if it ends up being, relatable to other people. And that's when I figured that out and unlocked it. It took a couple more months of working on it, and I was able to release it. And it, premiered on, I don't know if you're familiar with No Budge. It's like a site for like short films and short documentary stuff. And it's a site that I always really loved. And it premiered on there. So it was like, it felt really special that it like, um, yeah, was able to find an audience.
Yeah, that's terrific. And that is a site I am not familiar with. I want to thank you for teaching me about it. That is something I'm going to explore on my own. And it's interesting. I actually feel a little bit better about a project I'm working on with one of my best friends. We are sitting on some very old footage from a random road trip we took at I'd say it was 2021 or somewhere around there. And the fact that you took 7 years to really piece this kind of passion project together.
Yeah.
And I don't feel so bad about sitting on footage for 4 years trying to figure out how the best tell that tale.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend I'm a good cinematographer. This was very meant to be like shaky cam, handheld phones, and all that. And I'm actually looking forward to checking out your documentary. Is it currently available still, or is it offline at the moment?
Yeah, it's still available. It's called We Like It Here.
We like it here. Got it.
And it's on my website, kylerjmccarthy.com. It's also on No Budge still. You can find it there and on YouTube and stuff. So yeah,
Oh, that's
it's an important piece to me. It's very special still.
Oh, that's very good, and I love the fact that you still feel something from that, even
Hmm.
though it took so long. I know I've had projects that take a long time, and for me, it's either a big relief or it's like an itch in the brain that I'm still messing with it after X amount of years.
Yep.
So for something like this because this was a passion project for you, this was something very deep and personal. How was your creative process with this? Because you had to capture devastating footage at the beginning, and you were literally wading water to capture that footage. But once you had what you could work with, how did you approach this? What's your creative process for starting a personal project like this? Was this kind of situation where you had to build as you went because maybe you didn't have enough knowledge to do all the editing? Share with us that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the project itself actually weirdly started before the hurricane. A year prior, me and a friend were trying to make a documentary where we were interviewing people in our hometown, asking them if Long Beach were swept away by a hurricane, what would you want to be remembered about it?
Oh wow, what a crazy coincidence.
Yeah. And then a year later, it got swept away. And so part of it was like, um, going back and interviewing the people that we interviewed prior to the storm, um, interviewing people that were close around me, my friends and family, about their experience of the storm. So it was like a lot of things that, um, I learned over time that it's okay to like cut the things that you don't have to include everything in it, and it's hard making those difficult choices, but figuring out how to tell the story the best sometimes mean leaving out all these crazy, you know, interviews you had or like different parts of the story you want to tell. But yeah, it was just like I had all the footage and every year I would spend like a certain amount of time working on it, a couple, each night, putting in an hour or so. And then I would hit like a point where I'm like, "Ah, I just don't like how this is feeling." And I would focus on other projects I was working on and stuff like that. And yeah, it wasn't until I just something clicked on how to tell it. I was inspired by, um, there was a short documentary I had seen that really influenced me. I just loved the way it was told, the story, and it unlocked something for me. And seeing that documentary, I was like, it needs to be told in this way. Um, and so yeah, I think sometimes that's like the best the best thing as like a filmmaker or creative is to like uh steal like an artist where it's like you take in all these things that are uh get inspired by and then make something cool inspired by it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's terrific. I appreciate you sharing that. And along the lines of we're gonna kind of back up in your history a little bit, because again, this is all about how you got into this kind of a project and how you feel about distributing it. Let's go back in time a little bit, back to early Kyle's years when you're first like handling a camera and you kind of first decide that you're interested in this. What was kind of your first inspiration? Or what was your first yeah, let's go with that. Who was your first inspiration, or what film was your first inspiration? What really dragged you into like, oh, hey, I'm gonna pick up a camera. We're gonna see what I can make with this. What was that like for you?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've always loved movies as, far back as being a kid, but I would say first it was like skate videos, like watching skateboard videos made me think like, oh, I can do this. I can go out with a camera and film my friends and make a video. Like that made me feel like the barrier to entry wasn't super hard, like when you watch a great film, it was like, wow, I could never make this. This is amazing. But seeing a skate video is like, oh, yeah, we can do this. So that was the first thing that got me into picking up a camcorder and filming things. But I think in high school, really inspired by people like Wes Anderson, like Royal Tenenbaums or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like films like that, really Lost in Translation. All these films, those films were ones that I watch, you know, on repeat. I have the DVDs at home and just watch them over and over. And yeah, I think by college I was interested in making short films and using that crappy camcorder to make them.
I can relate with that. And you named some of my favorite movies there, and some of my favorite directors are attached
Oh
to
yeah,
those. Lost in Translation really changed my outlook on film. Not to mention when uh, that great film, uh, forgive me, Eternal Sunshine of a
hmm
Spotless Mind. I had a
yeah,
Porky
yeah,
Pig moment there. Forgive me. That was just shot so differently. The fact that
yeah,
most of that was still practical
yeah.
effects, literal large stages were created, literal fake sinks filled with water were created to make everybody look smaller in the memory sequences when they were children, and then just the camera movement seemed completely different from any other handheld style film. And for me, I have a list of films like that, but great references to Royal Tannenbaums. I mean, I'm not gonna go on a gushing movement, but Wes Anderson does something with film that nobody else does, and
Yeah.
I believe it was Sofia Coppola, correct, on Lost in
Lost in
Translation.
Translate. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lost in Translation, and she was the really first movie that kind of hooked me with an ending that didn't feel like an ending.
Yeah,
It didn't
yeah.
feel like it was the way it should have been,
Wasn't
but it
closure. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting that we had a loss of closure and it felt inspirational. It
hmm
felt like, well, this is the most realistic ending that we could have gotten to such an interesting small time frame story. And I really appreciated that. And for me, one of those films that was super inspirational for me as a teenager, Almost Famous.
Yeah.
And that
Loved Almost
movie,
Famous.
beautiful, beautiful cinematography, beautiful
hmm
story, great soundtrack, and you get trapped in that movie every time it's on. At least that's how I feel. And I mean, to
hmm
this day, uh, it's got to be pushing 25 years at this point, if I remember correctly. 25 years later, if I'm watching a film like that, I still feel like I'm watching it for the first time. And
Totally.
that's a great feeling to have with a lot of the works that are out there. And now again, this is where I'm going to compliment you for a second. The work that you produce, whether it's short form or long form, I find myself getting lost in the story that you tell. And
Appreciate it.
I really appreciate that. So when you have, say, a short, maybe you're making a 2 minute reel or a 1 minute reel for some very short story you want to tell, how are you approaching that creatively? Like, what is your process to decide on the content? What is your process to decide on what images are going to become motion graphics or animation versus what's going to be live footage? Can you share that with us?
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. My process is usually pretty loose. I think the way I usually start is, if I have, let's say, an example of like just a story that's really special and important to me that I've, tell at parties for years and years. I'm like, that would be a really great short to turn in, that's a great story to turn into a short. I usually start off with a script. I write up a script, record a voiceover, and then I edit everything in Final Cut Pro, actually. I know a lot of people use like Adobe and stuff like that, which I think is cool and stuff, but Final Cut was just where I learned originally. And so I'll put it into the timeline and I'll just start building on it and just kind of treat it like kind of a puzzle where I'm like, this kind of, I feel like right here should be an animation. Right here should be live footage. It's really kind of loose in that way. I've tried in the past to kind of come up with more systems and structure, but I find that I kind of work past when I just kind of treat it that way, kind of let it find itself, the story, and watch it over a bunch of times to kind of see where, what works. Um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
more or less my style.
No, that's great. There are more and more animators out there that I'm meeting, more and more motion designers, more and more motion graphic artists who are they're not stepping away from the planning phase, but they just go, okay, I have a pile of materials, let's experiment. Let's see what
hmm
we have there. And you do have an experimental style and it feels very fluid and it feels very natural with the stories you're telling. It doesn't feel like you jammed visuals into a section that didn't need it. And that's definitely something that can feel I mean, that can feel very real to some of the viewers for somebody who's rushing for content. And it doesn't
Mhm.
sound like you're rushing for content. It sounds like, hey, I'm making this for me. If somebody else likes it once I put it out there, great. We're artists. We need an audience. We unfortunately need in social media, the age of social media, we need followers to kind of catch on to what we're doing so we can kind of keep networking, etc. But I like this fact that it feels like everything you're making is for you and then out into the world. So
Mhm.
it's an audience of one at first, and then it comes out to us. Now, mind you, I'm sure that's not the same with, say, a professional project. And I'm actually wondering if is there a professional project that you've worked on in the last few years that really stands out to you, something that you're still kind of really proud of, and can you tell us about that if there is one?
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of a lot of the projects I've gotten to work on in the last couple of years. I've been grateful that and lucky that um like my style is so unique in itself that companies will hire me to do my style for their stuff. And that's always cool when I'm able to get an opportunity like that. Um like what comes to mind right away is like I've done a bunch of work with Patreon. And I just think they're a super cool company off the bat. Like I love what they're doing, trying to stop the starving artist and create systems where creators can actually, you know, support themselves off their art. It's amazing and not have to be reliant completely on algorithms and stuff like that. Um, and so originally we had done like a series where we spotlighted four different podcasters that are really successful on Patreon and using my mixed media style. And it's always cool when I'm working with a brand that just gets what I do and wants me to do that thing. It's not like trying to ask me to tone it down, but like wants me to play and create cool things. And so that was really fun getting into a project like that. And I've since did other projects with them that feel really fulfilling, and I really like working with them. A couple of years back, I got to do a project for the Rolling Stones, which is kind of cool. The band, which
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
or I got to make a match cut video of their tongue logo. I went all around. And just film like took photos in lots of different locations, different textures, buildings and stuff like that, and created this 30-second match cut that was really cool and really fun to get to like see on the Rolling Stones Instagram,
Yeah, that's amazing, and I can imagine it's a little intimidating when you're talking about uh, a band that was legendary 30 years ago, let alone now. And when you approach a project like either of these with Patreon or with, say, the Rolling Stones, are you working as a freelancer when this happens, or are you working with maybe an agency that's finding you work? Or is this part of your specific? I actually have never asked you this. I don't know if you are your own independent studio.
Mm.
So how are you approaching this when you're getting this kind of work? Is it again freelance word of mouth, or are we looking at like an agency studio situation?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both because um, those I would say all the majority of my projects come in from word of mouth of people finding my work on Instagram and TikTok. That's been my like those are my portfolios. I see it as like people I most of the times if like a video does really well is when I'll get like some offers from brands and stuff like that. Now, when I do brand partnerships, which are like ads on my Instagram and TikTok that are, through my page in collaboration with a company, um, like I did a project last summer for Mercedes-Benz where I got to do something with them. I have a manager who handles kind of all like the I like to do the creative stuff. He handles all like the negotiating and all that stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
and the go between those companies. Um, but like something like the Rolling Stones was before I had a manager and was people agencies finding me and wanting to work with me. And then also my wife and I last year started a little S corp company called House Rules Media, where we make things together. She's an illustrator, and so I'll animate things she's made. We've done stuff with like this hummus company called Little Sesames. We've done a lot of work with them. Really cool company, and it's cool to get to make fun, playful videos for brands. So yeah, that's like more or less the two different categories is like the company I have with my wife, and then when I do brand partnerships, I have management that does handles that stuff.
Very good. I appreciate you explaining a little bit about how that works. As you know, these kind of interviews go up on YouTube for students and
Hmm.
whatnot. So that's a part we don't usually get to discuss is some of that backlog. And I appreciate you sharing how that works. Now, again, you just explained to us earlier on one of your personal projects, you kind of just approach, experiment, see what materials you have, and then just really go for whatever the art is telling you to make.
Hmm.
Do you feel the process is different when you're working with, say, Patreon, Mercedes, Rolling Stone? Does it feel like there is in your head you're like, okay, I have to do it
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
book?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it's definitely when I'm making things just for myself, it's really easy and free form and it feels like jazz and it feels like putting together a puzzle and it's fun. But yeah, when I a lot of times it's self-imposed, but when I work with a company, I'm always like overthinking like, is this what they're gonna like or and so that's why it's always really helpful when I know a company is hiring me specifically because they know who I am, they know my style. That really is great because it allows me to like really just lean into my style. Like I just recently, a company I've done work with for years now, and do they're a nonprofit. So some every year I'll just make a video to support uh, Suicide Prevention Month. But to write love in our arms, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that nonprofit.
No, but I am definitely a big supporter of nonprofits that are about self-care, mental
Yeah, and
health
mental health.
awareness, and suicide prevention. Unfortunately, like many people, we've all been touched by it in some way,
Mhm.
whether was by someone close to us or someone who wasn't. And I will put a shout out to my brother Brett, who's no longer with us. He's one of my best friends. But yeah, I support these kind of things. And by all means, please send me a link about this. I want to support them as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're a great nonprofit, and um, every year I do something with them. And so by this point, like last month, uh, I made a video in support of that, and it's funny because they were like basically like just go with whatever direction you want to go. It was around this the phrase is just I hope you stay is that was like somehow incorporate that. And so I made this video and it was one of those things where it was like they gave no notes. It was after it's done, they're like, this is awesome. Let's put it out there. And it did great. And so it's like sometimes like, if I it's hard sometimes to remember like, okay, people are hiring me to do what you do and to lean into that. And that's important as an artist, as a creative, because sometimes if you're trying to pay attention too much to, what a brand wants or something like that, you might produce lesser work in order to not like, stir anything. And I rather I make something that I'm proud of, and then a brand says, all right, can you fix this or change this? And go do that rather than give them something that's self-edited already to be, dulled down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great thing to tell people because in my career, I'm motion graphics, animation, photography, graphic design. So I've got a little of everything in my career. I found a niche working for the California school college system, which I never thought would happen. But I was always a freelancer doing, something for publications or creating catalogs, things like that. But occasionally I'd work for PR offices at colleges, whether it was private or a public school. And we would have this situation where everything is very political. You don't realize this with colleges or with schools in general. There's a lot of politics behind the scenes, just about putting out the right look for the school.
Mm.
And every job was self-censored. Every job was made very clear, like we have an expectation and my portfolio is wacky. There is no other way to put it. I have a very unique style, whether I'm doing digital collage, actual collage, painting, illustration, it is its own unique thing. And it has its own visual style that is akin to a combination of comic book, animation, and for some reason, it feels like it belongs in its own vintage environment. And I get hired because they like that look.
Hmm.
and then they never wanted that look. And
Mm.
it was kind of boring after about 10 years of doing that kind of work. And
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it paid the bills, but like you said, I definitely felt trapped at some of these locations. Other locations eventually evolved and said, Jeremy, go do what you feel you need to do. And thankfully for you, you had a situation where, in this, let's look at this one client specifically that we referenced, the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Number one, advice I think you would agree with that I give to anyone who wants to do nonprofit work, make sure it's something you're passionate about. And I
Hmm.
don't just mean like something you're excited to design. I mean, the nonprofit is something you care about, you'd be willing to donate your time to,
Yeah.
your money to, and you support. And not only did you find something that sounded like, oh, this is a good company, it's for something I do support, but then on top of that, they gave you an environment to where you could relax coming into a job
Hmm.
and you could just be your artistic self. That is a rare thing, and I applaud
Yeah.
that you found that. And I hope you get to keep working with clients like that moving forward.
Yeah. It's an awesome thing when that's possible. And that's one of those like those relationships also take years to develop because like that company was one of the first, or that nonprofit was one of the first to find my work when I first started putting stuff out on TikTok. And it's so cool like that first time you have like a a big nonprofit reach out to you and want to work with you, and to like foster that relationship over, now 4 years I've been collaborating with them. It's really cool when you're able to get that comfortable, you know, that comfortability with clients. Yeah, I think that's where the best work comes from.
Oh, and that's great. And with given that you work with so many independent clients and you're now working with your own business, do you ever feel, and this comes up a lot with my students these days, because we're in the age of AI. Sorry, I had to have some humor in there for a moment. We're in the age of what's quote unquote AI, these image generator programs,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
video generators, and LLM,
Hmm.
language models that are learning how to do everything we already have done. Do you feel forced to interact with that technology a lot? Is there anything you actually feel is useful, maybe for your workflow?
Hmm.
I have personally found very few of these programs to be useful. Maybe for the inspiration phase, maybe for if I'm actually trying to create an image, I'll oftentimes go to not Facebook, I'm sorry. I'll go to Photoshop, for instance, and I'll piece together something for a surreal painting or a
Yeah.
surreal collage. But I know a lot of students who are using these for concepting, like Adobe's Firefly. They'll go in and
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
just say, "Give me a smoking llama with a wig," and they'll just
Hmm.
make something ridiculous and it's funny, and then they can work from that. But do you feel like you have to interact with that technology at all? Is there anything you like or dislike about it?
I'll say I'm someone who I don't love the idea of AI art. Um, and I've been public about it in that like, a couple of months ago, someone sent me a video of a mixed media animation that was made by AI that looked very similar to my style. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh man, like it made me feel like, man, I wish I had more time, to make art without it being easily replicated. Um, so the art aspect, I'm not a huge fan of. Who knows? Maybe in time I'll be forced to kind of accept that this is like where we're going. But I'm not someone who is against using AI to help you brainstorm or things like that. I think there's use cases to those kind of things, or like you were saying, of like generating like ideas of like what something will look like. As long as like I think it's still valuable to like, all right, you make like a prompt on it and then go and make the thing. Like
yeah.
still make things. I think people still desire for human stories, and I don't know. There's something more valuable to making art uh, with the tools that we have. But I don't know. It's always so hard because AI keeps evolving in these new and different ways. Every 2 months, I feel like we're talking about a different technology. Because
Absolutely. And I mean,
something
right now
changes.
right now there's thousands of different image generators, text generators. We know about the big five, whether it's Stable Diffusion, OpenAI, or
Mhm.
Google, Meta coming out with some kind of quote unquote AI. I'm a firm believer in don't use it. Don't use it
Mhm.
unless you absolutely have to. I do not like it. I have had friends who have gone to court over their work being stolen. Not like in a subtle way. I mean, the logo, like their signature was in the image generated. Nobody took their signature out of the
Jeez.
image generated. And mind you, you're now talking, this was back in like 2021, 2022 when these
Mm,
things were happening. And again, it is the world we're in. I am, at the time of this recording, I'm still a department chair for a digital media department at a college. And we are trying to integrate as much useful technology as we can, but it's up to the instructor to kind of navigate
mhm.
which thing is which. And my policy is simple. I teach a bunch of beginner classes. A beginner shouldn't touch that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's my philosophy. And again, I'm not against the technology existing
Mhm.
because it is going to be here. It was shoved down our throats without our permission from corporate greed. And now it's going to be here. It's going to be spectacular in 10 years. And it's going to
Mhm.
be similar to, maybe that utopian style technology we get in Star Trek. Hopefully. We don't want Skynet or anything like that. But I definitely appreciate your sharing your view on that. And I reference Adobe quite a bit because that's what I teach. And Adobe has come out and said, well, we're only using photos we've paid for, text we've
Mhm.
paid for. It's from their stock
Yeah.
libraries. Whether or not that's true, they're a massive corporation who has a monopoly on the creative
Mhm.
programs we use. But in essence, if they're doing things legitimately, paying authors and artists and photographers, sure, we can utilize that technology as it
Totally.
evolves and improves. And I know I took too long on that tangent. Forgive me.
Oh.
Backing up a bit from that, but yeah, I mean, sometimes I get worked up over this. Yeah,
I
but
hear you. I've
yeah,
made a couple different videos on YouTube about AI, um,
I've seen them.
mixed media versus AI and stuff. So yeah, I still I'm always going to root for humans to keep making things.
Yeah, and I think because of this technology, great, there's so many instant perfect things that can be made.
Mhm.
The artwork, the creative work that we now have, especially in 2025, uh, the human hands being attached to it are now going to make it a premium and
Mhm.
it's going to be more sought after. And it's the strangest thing to say because I'd say 10, 15 years ago, we were still in this stage where, oh, everybody wanted handmade goods or everybody wanted to explore handmade items, but they were super expensive. Well, now they're going to be even more expensive. And I'm personally seeing a rise in art markets, entrepreneurs creating more handmade goods while at the same time, I see the same people trying to get into that market with AI art, and no, not very many people are going for that. And
Mhm.
it's interesting to see that. And again, it, we'll get to a place where it'll all live cohesively. But I do feel
Mhm.
the human factor is going to become uh, a negotiation point. It's going to become a very valued item to be able to say, well, I can see that it was handmade. I can tell that somebody put passion into it. It doesn't feel cold, lifeless, or just uh, algorithmically perfect. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but back away from all of that. I kind of want to dive back into your creative process and things that may have happened with you when you started deciding to get into filmmaking. It was later in life. It was after school. Usually, I ask what made you decide to go to school for the thing that you
Mm.
were doing, but you actually switched gears in
Yeah.
your graduate's degree.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, how did your family feel about this? How did maybe your girlfriend, spouse, partners, whoever you're working with, how did you, what kind of reactions did you have when you decided, well, I'm going to cut off my plan and I'm going to go a completely different direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everyone was supportive, but also nervous of like not taking the right, of taking a less safe path, maybe, like a more volatile path. My wife, she was, we were pregnant with our first son at the time that I made the switch up. So it was like, but she was supportive of that. She knew that this is what I was passionate about and wanted to do. Um, and so, it meant like working crappy day jobs for a while that I wasn't happy with, but in hindsight now, I just see everything as all like a part of like building me into who I am. You know, the origin stories of how you become a filmmaker. For me, I worked at this Parks and Recreation department for a number of years, and I remember like I'd have to run errands to like go to City Hall, and so I'd be driving by myself, be really boring, and in my head I would just be dreaming up short film ideas. Like that's all I'd be thinking about. I was like, all right, this is the next short film I'm gonna make, and each year I'd make one or two short films, and put all my time and effort outside of work into making those films, and the ideas would just come during these times of just being really bored and unfulfilled at the job I was doing. Um, but hey, I don't regret it, you know?
Absolutely. And I was going to actually ask you, can you share one of these jobs you may have had to work? Parks and Rec, that's perfect. I know I'm one of those people who've always had three jobs. I mean,
Yeah,
it's I live in California, and we had a situation where things just have gone up and up and up due to inflation. And I've always had three jobs. It just
just got to
hasn't.
do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I'm still in that spot now. I run my own business because it's in my blood. My grandfathers, both of them ran their own business. My dad always wanted to run his own business, but he never, got the gumption to go do that. Gumption, boy, I just aged myself with that word. But I mean, my grandfather had his own architecture slash contracting company. My other grandfather was a mechanic and a muffler man, and he owned his own
Mhm.
business doing that. So it's just kind of the entrepreneurial spirit keeps me doing that while I'm also teaching and doing graphic design, and it piles up. And when you're
Yeah,
trying to follow the dream, you still gotta pay the bills. I've got
yeah.
two kids. I know exactly what you're going through at that same exact time. And it's nice to see that it's still possible for us to work hard, be tired, but still get a chance to create something. And
Hmm.
that goes for everyone. Because if you're doing it and I'm doing it, I can only imagine the next generation of artists who are going through the same thing are going to be able to do it better than us. Because hopefully we're going to see a better foundation for them.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's there. That's something I try to preach as well in my work is like, there's no shame in like taking a day job and still pursuing your passion. You don't have to choose one or the other. I only recently, in the last year or so, I've gone into doing creative work as my full-time job. And it's got its pros and cons. It's
Yeah.
scary sometimes when your only source of income is based on your creativity. It's a lot of pressure to put on your creativity. And sometimes there's something special about that being something that isn't monetized, like when I was working on short films, I didn't have any illusions that they would make money. I knew I wanted to make something really good and hopefully get into film festivals or you know, get people to see it. That was the goal, and sometimes that's great versus like this needs to be seen by brands that are going to hire me to make things.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I understand that. And it's interesting that you're saying that because uh a big part of this is inspiration and what inspires us to make something that can be just for us go to a festival. And I'm wondering now that you've been doing this for a couple of years, have you met any artists in your field that are inspirational to you now? Is there a living artist that you'd like to highlight that maybe inspires you, or even another individual artist from your youth that still inspires you?
uh, I mean,
Too
I'm
many to
co-
list. That might be
yeah,
an issue as well.
it's very hard, man. I was so lucky to last year I got invited to this trip to Switzerland for this event called Creator Camp Switzerland that was put on between this organization Creator Camp and the tourism board of Switzerland, where they basically sent 100 filmmakers to go make cool things in Switzerland for a
Ooh,
week. It was an amazing experience.
wow.
Um, but there was people there that, like someone like, I don't know if you know Gawx, you know who Gawx is?
No, I don't.
Gawx. He's
Oh,
someone
okay. Yeah.
who I look and I'm like, man, they're doing something so cool on like YouTube, and they're just doing their own thing and making really cool, amazingly cinematic videos, and are able to like make that their livelihood is awesome. It's so cool to see. Um, that like inspires me when, it's just people that are making making their art regardless of algorithms or trends, but just to make cool things and put it out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean that's who I'm aiming to be more as I create and keep things for myself and share what I can when I can. But yeah, stop following the algorithm, stop following the because it's all forced. It all feels
mhm,
very, very corporate now. And I don't use TikTok. I use Instagram as my only social media right now, and YouTube because YouTube and Vimeo. I'm going to say this wrong.
Vimeo,
YouTube and Vimeo are the best sources for me to spread my work
oh totally,
when I make something. So that's kind of where I look at it, and I'm like, well, these are my spaces,
yeah,
and if I'm lucky enough, somebody comes along, great. That'll be wonderful. But
yeah.
yeah,
I
that event sounds amazing, by the way.
Oh, it was incredible. It was a dream come true, honestly. But I was also going to say Vimeo has always been a great source of inspiration for me for the last decade plus. And always, when I make short films, it's always with the goal of getting a Vimeo staff pick. That was always the goal.
Yeah.
And I finally did get one a couple of years back for one of my shorts,
Yes.
and it was like it was one of those like very proud milestone moments where I'll never forget that feeling of like getting that email. It's like, oh, I got staff
Oh,
picked.
oh yeah, that is absolutely terrific. I mean, that is yeah, that hands down. That's that. If that's one of those things where the environment chose, not not like it's not like a bunch of people hit like the staff who this is their job to curate, and they
Hmm.
went, oh, oh, that's exciting. Let's throw that in there. I love it. That is terrific, my friend. And Kyle, I know we're kind of on a tight deadline today. I do have just one last question. As somebody who's in the creative field, and as you know, there's other people out there. We can be of all ages from 18, well, 16 down, or all the way up to 89 years old before we decide to change our lives and start
Mm.
creating. Do you have any advice for somebody who might be interested in getting into a creative career, and or just maybe trying to find their path? What advice might you give to somebody like that?
It's hard because I each year it changes the advice I'd give. I think if I was given advice to a young person, I would say give it your all and put everything into it and like give it everything. Um, but people in their 30s, people who have kids, it's scary and it can be hard to do creativity, and try to make that your full-time living and also support a family. And there's nothing wrong with doing day job, doing your 9 to 5, but also it's so valuable and important to keep making things and do things that fulfill you creatively and to not give up on those dreams, you know, and know that two things can coexist. So, like wherever you are in life, don't feel like it's too late to make films, too late to be an artist. It's never too late. Yeah, that's it's um but don't see whatever circumstance you're in right now as a roadblock to being a creative person. That would be my best advice. Like utilize that whatever small fraction of time you have in a day to make something.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. Do me one more favor and tell us where people can find your work, either website or social media handle that you would prefer them to go check you out at, and then we can let you go.
Yeah, no problem. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok as Kyle Makes Short Films, Kyle McCarthy on YouTube, and yeah, on Vimeo, Kyle Richard McCarthy. Yeah, it's where you can find my stuff.
Absolutely. I appreciate it very much. And thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you have a great day, sir. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
All right. Have a
See
good
you
one.
later.